Hey, what's going on, friends and fans? My name is Nate, and happy Monday, I guess. I usually make these videos at midnight, you see, and it just passed 12:01, so happy Monday to you, I guess. Good luck making the most of it. But today, what I want to talk about is Fallout 4's future and upcoming DLC in early 2016, and oh my God, we've got a lot of stuff this video. I'm incredibly proud of this. But we've got a lot of information to cover. We've got a lot of, I guess you could say, theories to go around, as well as some almost factual data to present, which is rare in videos like this. So, first I'm going to present I guess you can say, factual assets that we know for a fact are going to exist, and then we'll talk about some of the theories and ways these assets can be applied, and other things like that. So, without further ado, as I always like to say, let's do further. Alrighty, so what you're looking at right now is an unfinished weapon model asset data mined by Reddit user Troy Irving. Now, what data mining is essentially going and digging into game files and code that the player or the user usually isn't intended to access. The developers put special effort in trying to hide these files, but data miners like to go and get these and see what's in them. Usually when players data mine, they don't find much, but this was something that was found. It appears to be an unfinished weapon model for the Chinese assault rifle. Now, in case you don't remember or you haven't played it yet, Fallout 3 featured the Chinese assault rifle. It was a very dependable and very early on available weapon. It was available like right up from the get-go. You'd find it in Megaton or one of the early on like villages and settlements you'd go to. And once there and once acquired, the Chinese assault rifle had very easy to find ammo. It was the first fully automatic thing you got, so you loved to play with it. And it worked very well. It was very dependable, I guess you can say. And as a result, almost everyone who ever played the game used the Chinese assault rifle at some point in the early or mid-tier game, giving it a really special place in the community's hearts. Now, seeing that the weapon wasn't featured in Fallout 4, especially considering that Fallout 4 had the Yangtze, which I will get to in a second, but the Yangtze, the Chinese submarine, it was a little odd. Despite all these Chinese aspects that would allude to the Chinese assault rifle being there, and it wasn't, it was odd. So, seeing as they didn't include it, the only real reason not to is, especially if you already have the weapon model designed, for God's sakes, the only reason not to would be you intend to put it in a future DLC or future content expansion, which we all have our fingers crossed for. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is the Harpoon Gun. Like the Chinese assault rifle, this weapon was actually data mined from the game's code. But unlike the Chinese assault rifle, this weapon actually works in-game fully and functional. And the interesting thing about this weapon is that when it shoots, little bubbles appear from the tips, a little bubble animation, suggesting that this weapon was intended for underwater use, which I think is huge, because as we know right now, there are zero underwater combat threats, no underwater enemies or anything of that sort. Pretty much registering the need for a harpoon gun or an underwater-only gun irrelevant, right? Unless the developers intend to put underwater enemies in-game in a future DLC. Because there's only two reasons why a harpoon gun would be featured like this, right? Number one, the developers intended to include underwater enemies when they were developing, and they just already finished the harpoon gun early. Or B, the one I like to think, is the developers intend to include underwater enemies, and they had already finished the game, so they figured why not start designing some assets for a future DLC, and they designed the harpoon gun, intending to include underwater enemies in the future. And I think that would be really, really cool. An underwater-themed DLC, aquatic one. Obviously, you wouldn't just be swimming around in that ridiculous murk for 45 minutes, but maybe they'd include like an underwater vault you'd have to fight your way to, which I think would be really cool, because it really would make sense to put a vault underwater if you're thinking of like story lore wise, and it'd be cool to have to fight your way down there and actually get in there and see what unique things have happened in the underwater vault per se. So I think that would be a pretty awesome thing, and it seems very, very likely that that is in fact a possibility. First, we have the Yangtze, a Chinese submarine that can be found off the east coast of the Commonwealth. Once entered, the player will encounter the now ghoulified captain, Chinese Admiral Zhao, who claims the submarine actually fired some of the first nuclear missiles at Boston when the Great War first erupted. But Zhao now claims that his vessel hit a mine eventually, and has since been registered as immobile. With the rest of his crew gone to become feral ghouls, Zhao will task you with killing the rest of the feral ghouls left in the submarine, as well as request your help in repairing the submarine. So he can go, air quotations here, go home, right? Which obviously implies China. Now, doing all of these tasks, he will reward you with a set of smoke grenades that can be used to call in missile strikes across the map, all emerging from Zhao's ship. Now, the problem with this is that the missile strikes themselves are pretty weak, and seen as they were the only unique item in the entire submarine save for Zhao should you decide to kill him, players were a bit disappointed, right? I mean, Zhao and his submarine come from a very exotic and almost limited culture that we see in Fallout. Fallout takes place in America, it's set there. Yet China plays such an important role in the lore and the story behind Fallout, and we get to see so little of it when we finally got to see an aspect brought into the game, it didn't really deliver everything we had hoped. So this is the first problem, and I'm surprised Bethesda didn't recognize this and include something more. Like, hey, maybe they'd include the Chinese assault rifle, which we saw just a couple seconds ago, you know? But they didn't do anything of that. Like, there wasn't really anything unique or lore-friendly there. This presents Bethesda with a great opportunity, though, for future DLC. Maybe you can get in Zhao's ship and go, air quotations here, home, right? Because after you get these smoke grenades and complete the quest, his vessel really never leaves. It always stays in Boston for some reason, right? Well, maybe one day you'll be walking, you'll get a radio transmission, you'll go back to a ship, he'll tell you, hey, I'm going to China, you want to come? Or something like that. I think that would be really cool, because we know a lot about China in Fallout, we know a lot about what they are, we know they play an incredibly big role, yet we know so little at the same time. We don't know what the culture was like over there. In America, the culture kind of just halted at the 1950s. I wonder what like cultural advancements they made or cultural halts they did in their timeline. There's so much that can be played with if they go to that area. Furthermore, of course, Zhao could like use a submarine to take you other places. Maybe he can take you to like, I don't know, New York would be a pretty cool location. That's actually a pretty good opportunity, actually, because New York itself, like Manhattan area, it's a very small place, you know? It's very dense, but it's very small, despite its significance. So maybe you can go to an area like there, go somewhere around the U.S. East Coast, or hopefully all the way back to back to China, which I think would be pretty freaking awesome if you ask me. Next, we have the, I'm going to call them the VR helmets found in Good Neighbor. Now, if you haven't played the storyline or the main quest line yet, a minor spoiler here, but throughout the game, early on, you're going to have to go to Good Neighbor where you use these virtual reality helmets to access another character's memories. Once you do that, you'll be able to kind of explore them a little bit. You'll be able to really go places. Now, the thing about this is that there's a huge opportunity with this. In case you don't remember Fallout 3, that you used a similar thing to enter Tranquility Lane, which was a really freaky simulator. And then they were also used for Operation Anchorage DLC as well in Fallout 3. So it seems very feasible that the trend would continue in Fallout 4, where you use the VR helmets, you go to another location. Maybe you simulate the bombing of Boston. Maybe you get to see something pre-war, because we know there's far more pre-war aspects in this game than there has been in any other Fallout one. Especially considering you get to play in it to begin with. It wouldn't be too far off to imagine that maybe you can go back there, simulate some memories like that. Similar to what Operation Anchorage did. I think that would be a really cool opportunity for a non-linear, like, sort of open world thing that works briefly. I don't know. I think that'd be really cool, though, just to explore pre-world Commonwealth, or whatever location they decide to send you. So that pretty much concludes all of the known potential assets for the future DLC that we can really gather, and I think it'd be very, very possible to see most of, if not all of these things featured in the actual DLC. Like the CN assault rifle, the Yangtze, and the Harpoon Gun, they could tie together. Like maybe you get on the Yangtze, the Admiral Zhao gives you a Chinese assault rifle. When you get out of the Yangtze in China, there are these weird fish creatures coming at you, and you need to use a Harpoon Gun to fight them off as you make your way to the shore. Or maybe you get one of the VR helmets, you get a Harpoon Gun, and they show you how U.S. Special Forces bombed the Yangtze or registered it in mobile when the Great War was first starting. Either way, there's a lot of potential here. There's a huge potential for creativity to be used. And I think that Bethesda's got a lot to work with. The Yangtze and the VR helmets in particular present an obvious opportunity that I think Bethesda would want to capitalize on. Furthermore, we pretty much have confirmation that the CN assault rifle and the Harpoon Gun were already being worked on, or if, in the case of the Harpoon Gun, already been completed, and it would be very likely that we get to see those weapons in a future DLC. So I've got no doubt we're going to see something come out of this. Thanks for watching, guys. Like if you liked, dislike if you disliked, and oh god, and have a happy Monday, I guess, even though as difficult as that task may be. But anyways, guys, thanks, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye, everyone.